Hello and welcome to Everything I Knit in 2024. I'm Katie and I'm pretty new to this, so we'll see how this goes. To preface, I am in a season of life where I have a lot of time to be able to knit, and I am fortunate enough to have the resources to be able to do this. So there is a lot to go through. So I will not be doing all the details on everything, but I'll be giving some details on all of them. So I also am not going to go in order, mainly just because I didn't want to put them in order. So with that, let's get started. First up, we have my Jenny Jacket V-neck. This pattern is by Petite Knit, and I knit it in Sunday held double. So the pattern does call for a strand of Sunday and a strand of Mohair, but I just didn't want to do the Mohair, and I did want it to be a little bit denser, and so that is just what I opted for. And so I knit this one in January for my birthday sweater, a little bit of a tradition that I have, and it has gotten a lot of wear out of it. So I've been super happy with how it has held up, just a little bit of pilling on the sleeve there, but really nothing too bad. And this was definitely a highlight. The fit is amazing. Her button band, I use this button band pattern for a lot of my other cardigans as well. So that was number one. Next, we have another Petite Knit pattern. This is the Melange Sweater, and I knit this in two strands of Sunday as well, actually. The pure white color and then one of the cream colors. And so I had all intentions of knitting this to fit my husband and then wear it oversized, but I did not go long enough. That was the biggest issue. So it's just mine, but it still gets a ton of wear and I love it. I do think that this is one that I would potentially make again, but we'll get into another just basic stockinette pattern later from Petite Knit that I'm actually more likely to knit. One thing on this pattern is just that it's a drop shoulder, and I do like a drop shoulder pattern, but I think in 2025 I need to learn to get a little bit neater on my pickups up for the sleeves. The back on this one isn't as bad, but I just don't like the look of the front here, and I think this is just an error on my part of not picking up correctly. So that's that one. This next one I labeled my least favorite of the year, and I actually knit most of it in 2023, but had run out of yarn and then had to get started on my birthday sweater, and so I did finish it in 2024, and then it was kind of a letdown, and it had spanned a lot of months of making, and so it was pretty unfortunate. But this is my sweater number 15 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and I knit this up in a strand of Patagonia by Juniper Moon and Tynn Silk Mohair by Sandnes Garn. And the mohair I had on hand, and so that's why I used it. But I did not use the correct yarn combo for this that the pattern calls for. And again, I have done that on several other patterns and have had really good luck. This was not one of those successes. It's just too stiff for the really wide boxy fit. And the biggest issue I have with this is the sleeves. It's a really wide sleeve, and it's a little bit of a cropped sleeve, and it has no decreases on it, and so it's just wide all the way down, and I just don't like the fit on myself. So ultimately, I don't know what's going to end up happening to this sweater, if I'm going to frog it and use the yarn for something else. It is a lot of mohair, so I don't know if I'm willing to do that. I might just see if I have a friend or family member who likes the fit a little bit better on them, because I do think that part of it is just I don't like the sleeve fit. And yes, I do have some extra ends to weave in there. So not my favorite of 2024, but that's okay. It was a learning game with that one. Next, I have my Novice Cardigan Mohair Edition by Petite Knit. You'll notice I have several Petite Knit patterns. I do think she's so popular for a reason. I'm never disappointed with the fit of the sweaters that I make by Petite Knit, and so I'm always just happy with the product, and so I'm always going back to her patterns. But this one I knit in two strands of Emma's Marvelous Mohair, which is a brand that my local yarn store carries. And so it was very easy to get, and I actually wear this way more than I thought I would. I made it because I obviously live in a very cold state, and so I wear wool sweaters a good portion of the year, but I travel for work, and so I was like, it'd be nice to have something more lightweight so that when I'm in a warmer state, I can bring this lightweight sweater in my carry-on. It's not as bulky, and then it also will like be more seasonal, and I do actually wear it a lot, so I am very happy with this one. My buttons are maybe just a little bit too small, and so they do pop out. You probably saw me buttoning it up at the beginning there. But ultimately, it was a very easy project, and I would recommend this pattern to people. All right, next up we have a great one that I haven't ever talked about or posted about. So if you follow me on any other platform, you might be like, wait, why have you never talked about this? And that is my Colette Pullover by Sari Nordlund. This was definitely a Sari Nordlund year for me. It was my first year knitting any of her patterns, and I think I knit 4. So you'll see them all. I knit this one in Knitting for Olive Merino, held with soft silk mohair. Definitely one of the best combos of yarn for a reason. It's definitely worth the hype, I think. And this is in the color of Fennel Seed. And so I just loved this color. I do feel like this color kind of has a cult following in the knitting community, and for good reason. I knit this in the late winter, early spring here so that I could wear it going into the spring. And it was great for that. It was great for a transitional piece, and the color was just like so great to pull out and feel very springy on the cooler spring days even. So would definitely knit this one again. I think I knit this in the size 2, and I like the fit of it, but it definitely is a little small. Smaller than I had intended for it to be, I guess. And so I would potentially, if I were to ever knit this again, I would probably go up a size in knitting that. And you'll see this is a theme with my Sari Nordlund patterns. Where Petite Knit, I err small, going a size down. I would err going a size up in Sari Nordlund patterns. So take that for what you will. Everybody has their own experience. And so it probably is just my style of knitting as well. But definitely love this one. Probably won't ever knit it again because I don't think I need 2 of these, but you never know. We're back to Petite Knit with the Mande Sweater, and this is the other basic stockinette pattern that I was talking about at the beginning, and I just love a raglan. I love knitting a raglan, and it is just a basic top down. You start with the collar, you knit down. I knit this in oh gosh, a strand of cashmere and then a yarn. I'll have to put it in the notes around the screen because I'm not going to get the name correct, I don't think, but it's a KFI. It's a cashmere. It's 80% cashmere and 20% merino wool yarn. And so this is very luxe, very soft. I wanted just like a nice throw-on sweater, and I love it. I will definitely knit this pattern again. The Mande Sweater is great. It does have a very long cuff, and for me, I do like rolling it, but I do think if I knit it again, I would just shorten this out of preference. And then I also think this might be the first sweater I add an elastic band to the neckline because it does stretch out a lot. And I do think it's just that raglan structure. It's so much weight on the collar. And so if I were to knit this again, when I knit this again, I would probably adjust the neckline a little bit so it's not quite as wide. I just don't like a boat neck on me, and so again, this kind of comes down to preference, but this will be knit again one day. I'd love it in a navy. Back to Sari Nordlund, we have the Book Club cardigan. Tons of people made this year. I was a part of the CAL that a couple knitting YouTubers put on, and it was just so fun to be in the community of knitters knitting this all together. I was knitting it in the summer because I'm in the Northern Hemisphere, and so it was kind of funny to knit this really chunky cable knit in the hottest months. But then when the fall came around, I was so excited to have this finished object ready to go. It was my most time consuming, and I think part of it was I didn't have the motivation to get it done because I knew I wasn't going to be able to wear it right away. And so for me, I think it kind of sat around a little bit, and I picked up other things. I always have multiple projects on the needles, so it wasn't the first thing I grabbed all the time. I knit this in Filicolana, apologies on the pronunciation, Peruvian Highland wool. I saw somebody doing that in the Cal and just really love that. I was hoping that this would give the vibe of an oversized sweater that your grandpa wears by the fire while he drinks scotch. And while I don't think that's what it turned out to be, I do love what it is, which I would say is like a art museum outfit, a little bit nicer, chic cardigan. So I think that I got a different vibe for a couple different reasons, because I do think that some people achieved what I was hoping for. And that is one, the size. I wish I had gone up an extra size in this one. And I was very glad I was a part of the Cal, because everybody was saying that they went up in the sleeve size. And I did as well, 2 sizes. So I knit the size 2 in this, but I did the size 4 sleeves, and they are not a baggy sleeve. They are not oversized at all. And so I'm very glad I didn't do the size 2, but I would have liked this to be a really oversized cardigan. Now, it turned out to be this. I'm in love with it, and I wear it all the time. And so I'm not mad about what I ended up with, but it is just kind of shows the difference of like what you knitted up with, and the size really matters for that finished object. I also ordered these really fun buttons that have little flowers on them, and maybe I'll put a close-up clip in there if I can. And I absolutely love them, but again, it does not make the vibe of a grandpa sitting by the fire to have floral gold buttons. And so that could have been another option to change it up a little bit. So all in all, I love this one. I'm just going to show the back because the cables are just so pretty on it. And I did make one modification that I'll share, is that you're supposed to, when you knit the pocket, you continue this cable pattern in the pocket. And I just didn't do that because you don't really see it. And I actually kind of like the stockinette popping out. So I don't know, for anybody who's like so done with cables by the point that you do this pocket, you don't have to. Awesome. Back to Petite Knit. We have the zipper sweater, not the light. And I did achieve with this one knitting it in a size that fits my husband, but I wear it too so that it can be for both of us. I knit this one in Juniper Moon Patagonia as well, held double. And it is super dense and super heavy. But again, I live in a very cold state, and so having something like this for like December through honestly early March is very practical. And so on a day that I just like really want something cozy and warm, or on like a little bit warmer winter day that I don't want to wear a big winter jacket, I can throw this on and it's really great. So I do have that metal zipper there. It was my first time sewing a zipper into a knit garment. I have made some like little clutches and stuff, and so I was really nervous about this because I'm like, you see it a lot more here. And it honestly wasn't too bad. I definitely it could have been better, but for my first time, I'm not mad about how it turned out. So this one's great. I can put this in the notes as well, but I know she has a man version and the women's version, and one of the only differences is the twisted rib on the collar, or all over. And I did the version with the twisted rib. So I don't remember if that one is the man pattern or the women's pattern, but I did the one with the twisted rib, and it was very brutal doing the collar because it is a double folded, and I do not like working twisted rib, but I do actually like the finished object, and I think it looks a lot neater. And because it's such a chunky, dense object, I am glad that I have that neater ribbing all over. So there's that one. Next up, another knitting community favorite is the Porson Sweater by Lynette. And I knit this one up in the recommended yarn, which is Tynn Line and Tynn Silk Mohair by Sandnes Garn. And I did the white color that I think she uses in the pattern, but the blue I went for a little bit of a brighter one. Partially because I do have a little bit of Dutch blood and I live in a very Dutch area, and so this just This color really makes me feel like this is Delft wear, and so I just love that about it. And so I love my color choices on this. I've seen a couple people, I think those twins who knit one in a tan and a brown, which is so beautiful as well. I don't know if I'll ever knit another one of these, but if I did, I would maybe knit it in that color. The only qualm I have about this pattern is that I do feel like the images that she uses on the pattern are the size that she knit is not what is recommended for positive ease in the actual sweater. So in the photos that she has of herself wearing this sweater, it's a little bit baggier and oversized, and it is not as baggy or oversized. And when I should have done a little bit more research on Instagram and Ravelry before I cast it on, but most people's is more fitted. And I do think it's because it appears like, oh, if I make it to the recommended size, it will fit like this. And that's just not true. So I love the fit of it, but I did expect this one to be more oversized than it is. So yeah, I don't know what you can really do about that. So this one's already gotten some great wear out of it, but I feel like now that we're heading into January, it will get a lot more wear because it's just like such a wintry piece with the blue snowflakes on the top. Next, we have just a very basic, simple slipover, the Novice Slipover by Petite Knit. And I had been wanting to knit a slipover, and then Cezanne was targeting Instagram ads at me for one of their slipovers. And so I ended up quickly, in the middle of other projects, casting this on because I was like, I don't want to buy a knit garment when I can make it. And this pattern is the one that I found that was like the most similar to the one that I was getting targeted ads for. So I knit this in Knitting for Olive, heavy merino, and mohair. And I've already purchased yarn to make another one of these because I wear it all the time. I love it so much, and it's just so easy to throw on over a colored shirt when you're heading into the office and stuff. And so I do love this one. Again, I travel for work, and so this is a lot more practical to pack than some of these heavy garments because it just doesn't have the sleeves on it, but it's still very warm. And so I love a good slipover. I have several on my want to make in 2025. I don't know which ones will actually make the list in 2025, but hopefully I do use the yarn I purchased to make the second one of these in 2025. Now we're on to another Sari Nordlund pattern. I think this is not as well known of a pattern because it's only in her book. And I actually purchased the book because I wanted to make this. And I had this idea and I was like, I just like want like one cable on a sweater or a cardigan. And I found this pattern. I was like, this is exactly what I was thinking. And so I bought the book and made this. This is in Sunday, held double as well. One of my favorite combos as well. And it is the Urania Cardigan. I did make some modifications to this one. And I do think that my pickup on my drop shoulder sleeve here is neater than the Melange sweater that I showed earlier. So maybe I am just naturally getting better at this throughout the year. Again, these aren't in order, but I did knit this one several months after the Melange sweater. So that's of note. Some of the modifications that I made, I did add a double knit button band because I just really prefer it to just a ribbed one. And so I added that and I'm very happy with it. And then I also added a cable down the sleeve there. So it matches the cable, and I went back and forth on even adding this, and I was like, I'm just gonna try it out. I can always frog it, and I ended up loving it, and it goes so well on the pattern. I did it right from that seam at the top, and I loved in the body of the sweater, the cable goes through the ribbing, and so I did that on the sleeve as well because I thought that was such a nice detail. On the back, where you do the increases here, it is super tight. So if you're a tight knitter, I would recommend just being very conscious of this because it is almost too tight on mine, and I would not say I'm a tight knitter. So that is really tight. The construction is very interesting on this one. Overall, I do like the fit of this one, but I think partially you'll notice like this is falling down, and I think this cable just does not have this structure up here to be able to support the double knit button band because it's so heavy, so it falls over. So it falls over when I wear it as well, unless I pull it a little bit wider and wear it more as a V-neck, like a deeper V-neck than up here. And so I actually wear this one more in the summer. Again, I have a climate where in the evenings it gets colder, and so I can throw this on. And so I do wear this one more in the summer because it's just not super warm the way that I wear it. So is what it is. Next we have my Friday tee by Petite Knit. If this didn't take so long to knit, I would probably already have another one. I get so many compliments on this when I wear it, and nobody assumes that I made this one. Even if people know I knit, like this one, people assume I bought because it's just such a great finished object. I think, one, it's a fingering weight yarn, and so that finer yarn people assume you don't work with, and then the detailing on it, I think it's just very great. The really thick raglan, I love. You can see the detail there a little bit better. And I love it how it's on all four sides. I did this as a travel project to try out. Again, you can't bring everything on the plane all the time. If you have a sweater almost done, you're not going to bring like the end of the sleeve because it's just so much to lug in your bag. So I was like, I'm going to do a lightweight project, and I'm only going to work on it when I travel. So I just brought this on trips with me for work and for pleasure, and knit this mainly on planes and in hotel rooms. And it was the perfect travel project because you work in the round the entire time. And so it was super easy to just knit in this broken rib throughout. The hardest thing is definitely just like you have the two colors, and so you always have the two balls of yarn. But honestly, that wasn't too bad. I will say starting out, there are short row on the back, and that's great because it fits really nice. But starting them out after the collar with the stripes is not for the faint of heart. I had to focus so hard to make sure that I was changing colors when you change colors, and I was doing the knit row and then the rib row on the right sides of the stitch marker because you switch back and forth in weird spots. So just know that is difficult, but then once you get past the short rows, it's honestly a breeze. It's just a lot of knitting, tons of stitches. But again, I think this one is well worth it. And I do hope one day to have another one. I would potentially make this in knot stripes just to have something different because I think two striped ones would just be a lot in my wardrobe. My fourth Sari Nordlund here is the Billy Pullover. I was obsessed with this all year, and then I've seen a couple of people knit it up, and I was like, okay, it's time. I have to do it. So I did this in woolstock worsted, and I love the garment. This is the fourth Sari Nordlund pattern that I knit this year. And so I had learned from all the other ones about the sizing and my preferences. And so on this one, I probably could, like based on her sizing, I probably could have fit in the first size. And so I was like, okay, maybe I do the second size. I did the third size, and I love the fit. If you want a more fitted object, you could definitely do the size recommended. I just knew I didn't want that. And so I knit the third size, and I'm super happy with how it fits. I wouldn't even really call it oversized. It's just not fitted. And so it's amazing. This is my favorite object of the year, I think. It's so hard to pick favorites, but one of my favorite details on this pattern is the raglan cable. I just think that it's unique. You don't see it all the time, and it's just so elegant the way that the raglan comes down diagonally there, and then you have the cables coming out of it. I was gonna save this pattern and knit it for my birthday sweater in January, which I start a sweater on January 1st. My birthday is January 26th, And so I try to finish a sweater, including blocking, and then wear it on my birthday in January. And after knitting the book club cardigan, I was like, I better not. I don't think I could actually finish this in 3 weeks. And so I decided just to cast it on before. And I'm glad I did, because I'm glad I had it for the holiday season. But my reasoning for doing it, I didn't need to do that. I knit this up so fast. I don't know if I just like couldn't wait to wear it, or if it's just really a quicker knit than you think. But I flew through this pattern. So for an all over cable pattern, the amount of time I spent was so little. I couldn't believe it. I do think one thing that helps with this pattern is that all the cable crosses are on the same row. So you only do them every 4 rows or every 8 rows. And so all the other rows, you're just knitting or purling as they present. And so it's not every row is in a cable row on this one, which I think does make it go a little bit faster. So loved this one. Great. I also did a couple Kutavakika patterns this year, and I do like, I will knit her more in the future because I do like these finished objects. So first I did the stripe pipe sweater, and I knit this in a combination of Knitting for Olive Merino and Sunday by Sandnes Garn, and just based on the colors. I had originally ordered all Knitting for Olive colors, and then when they came in, some of them I just like didn't like together in this pattern, and so I swapped it out for some of the Sunday colors that I had on hand. So I believe the tan and this peachy salmon color are both Sunday, and then all the other ones are Knitting for Olive Merino. So I love the detail. I can't remember exactly. One of these, she doesn't have the colored detail on, but I did it on all of them because I just love that she does have that detail on the edges of putting in one of those colors. And it's all in all a great pattern. My only qualm with this one is that it does not have short row shaping, and I wish it did. So again, I just find that garments fit better when they do have those short rows, and so I would prefer it. I also learned after this that my purls are significantly larger than my knit stitches, and you start this whole back panel as a huge rectangle, not a trapezoid, and it was very obvious when I got down to the brown in the round, and you can see how much tighter it is when I get into knitting in the round. So I think it was after this pattern that I started going down a needle size on my purl rows. And so I use interchangeables. And so I think this was on a US 4. And so I have a US 4 on one side, and then I go down a 0.5 millimeter size. So a US 4, be a US 4 and then a US 3. No, a 4 millimeter and a 3.5 millimeter. I should just go by the millimeters. So and that worked so well in all my other projects that I did that on. And so I will continue to do that until something changes. But that is something that I always look at on this one, because I can just really see how much looser it is on the top than it is the bottom. So I do love the twisted rib on this as well. As painful as it is to knit, it does make a great finished object. I loved the stripe pipe sweater, so I went straight to the dress. I don't actually think I knit these back to back, but I did. Well, I guess I kind of did. I had one cast on at all points. So I did the stripe pipe dress. I made a couple modifications, but overall, it is just like knitting a sweater. Anyone can do this. You just knit so much longer on the body. So the biggest modification I made is the sleeves. You'll notice she has a 3/4 sleeve, and I just know I would wear it more as a short sleeve. And then I didn't go quite as long, although when I blocked it, it did stretch out a little bit. And so I'm glad I didn't go super long, just because I did add a couple inches once it blocked. I knit mine all in Knitting for Olive Pure Silk Held Double. So the great thing is just I bought 2 balls of every yarn, and that's all you needed throughout the whole thing because there's so many colors. And so it felt like you were buying less yarn than I actually did because it was just 2 balls of every color instead of however many balls of yarn this is. So I did not get a lot of wear out of this. Just by the time I finished it, it was like already starting to cool down here. And so I hope to get a lot more wear out of this next summer. But I am glad to have this in my wardrobe. I do think I like this, the choice of using the pure silk, but I do feel like I can't really make a testament if I would knit this again in pure silk versus one of the other summer yarns until I get more wear out of it. So we'll figure that out later. Then I knit a couple summer knits, and one was the Sadie sweater by Ozetta. This is a rolled hem cotton sweater, and I actually knit this in a yarn I got from Joann's, which was the Eddie Bauer Adventure cotton. It's a 100% cotton yarn. It's a fingering weight, and the price was amazing on it. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get this. I actually knit something else in it first, which I'll show next. But so this sweater cost me, it comes in 100 gram balls, which is crazy for a fingering weight yarn. And it was less than 4 balls of yarn. And I did make mine a little bit cropped because I wanted this to be like a sunset on the beach sweater with jean shorts. And so it's kind of like a summer throw on for me. And so I knit it a little bit cropped, but even if I knit it to length, I would have only needed four balls of this. And Joann's has tons of sales. And so I honestly think this was probably $20. So a great option. I really like the yarn. It comes in big skeins, and I did ball wind them. And I'm glad I did, just because you're knitting with it for so long that it was much nicer to have the nice ball. But it took so long to wind them. It was not fun. So it was definitely putting in a lot of work on the front end to make the knitting experience better. So I would knit this again. I did wear it a lot at the end of the summer and into the fall. It was a great transition piece, being cotton. And so I would definitely knit this again. I almost knit the Cloud sweater by Petite Knit until I saw that she was going to be releasing this. And the Cloud sweater just has a few more detailings and is not knit in a cotton yarn. So I knew I was kind of making a gamble by knitting that one in a yarn like that was completely not recommended. It's like very far from the recommended yarn. So I was super happy when I saw that Ozetta was putting out this pattern, and it was something similar to what I was looking for, but with a more similar yarn. So I actually do hope to knit this one again, and my drop shoulder is not too bad on that one either. I don't know, maybe I am getting better. The other thing that I knit in that Eddie Bauer Adventure cotton is actually the Cloud Top by Petite Knit, and that is why I was like, oh, I really like this. I would love a sweater version of it. And so that is kind of why I wanted to move into that. But I love the detail here. I got so much wear out of this. I'm a very cold person as well, and so in the summer I can wear a heavy garment all year. So it is great. I will knit this one again. The only thing, I don't even know if this will pick up, but there are a few little marks on this, and I need to try to like bleach it. But the yarn actually came stained, and it's probably just however they produce it that something was rubbing, and there were a few like little rust marks, it looked like, on the yarn when I was knitting. And someone with more patience than I would have probably cut it out, but I didn't because I was very convinced I would get the stains out, and I just haven't put in the effort to do that either. So this one could probably use a little bit of TLC. Next, my other summer top I made this year is the June top by Petite Knit. This is in Tynn Line held double. I knit this one in 2023 in knitting for Olive pure silk, and I wore it all the time and loved it, and so I just wanted another one. I knit my first one in like a cream color, And so I wanted something a little bit more fun and colored for this one. And I also just wanted to try out this yarn, and I love both versions. I will say this and the Knitting for Olive are much better summer yarns than the cotton if you want something lightweight on your body. It's much lighter just physically than that Adventure Cotton Cloud Top that I just showed. So I could foresee myself knitting another one of these, honestly, just because it's so wearable. I love the strap thickness. It's not too thin, but it feels supported. So that is this. I will say this is actually the same color that I knit the Urania cardigan in. So I do wear these as a set, and I really love it. There's just enough difference in the colors because of the material. The linen versus the wool, that it just has a really nice contrast while being kind of like a matching set. So probably also why I wore the Urania cardigan more in the summer is because I would pair it with this. Going back to some winter knits, this one I finished not too long ago, my Beatrix cardigan by Gregoria Fibers. I am obsessed with this. I had it on my list for a while. And when I first started knitting, I was like, okay, like I need to be better before I knit this. And I'm so glad that I finally dove in and decided to do it. The chunky cable down the sleeve is just everything. It is such a chunky, luxurious little cable. And so it's super fun and I love it. I wore this one in outfits, but also as a jacket. And so it almost is kind of like a shacket because it's so thick and heavy. And so I absolutely love this one. I have been able to wear it a lot. I knit it in the recommended yarn and the color that she knit it in as well, which is Roma Garn. I had never used Roma Garn before, but I ended up using it on another project. Not the same yarn, but Roma Garn. So this was knit in the Fivel, held together with the Roma alpaca silk. And so the alpaca silk was actually kind of hard to find and acquire. But I did want it to be matching. I didn't want a ton of variegation. And so I did find it so that I could get the colors I wanted in this. I will say I like this color. I do think I probably could have found something that a color I would have liked to wear a little bit better. Having blonde hair, this like yellowy tan, it's just like a little, I feel too much like it makes my hair look like straw. So I don't know. It probably doesn't. It's probably just something that I'm like, oh, not my color. But I have worn it a lot despite that. And then the last garment that I knit this year was my Christmas sweater. This was the other garment I knit in Roma Garn. It's the Fennel. Fennel, sorry. I cannot keep track of the Fennel and the Fennel, so I'll make sure I put what one is correct for which object in the notes. And this is the Festive Yoke sweater by Sandnes Knits. And there was a lot of inspiration for this one from those twins who knit and some others. But I just loved the ability to modify this pattern. And so in the pattern, she has a bunch of different color work charts. So you can pick what objects you want on there, as well as there's instructions for just doing the yoke color work and also doing the full body in color work. And so I chose to just do the yoke. And the green is actually a Baracco yarn, alpaca, one of the alpaca ones that I had on hand because I did not like the green that I ordered. And so I ordered a second ball of green in this yarn, and I also didn't like it. And so I was like, okay, at this point, like I should probably just pick a different yarn. And so luckily I had this on hand and I think it worked great. I wore this to a lot of Christmas parties this year and it was a real crowd pleaser. So I personally think that color work is easier than cables, but I don't think that people understand that. And so they're always very impressed It's probably not true for everybody either, but so people were very impressed by this, just the two-toned, having different colors. And so it was very fun to break this one out, and it does kind of make me want to knit another Christmas sweater next year. However, I just don't feel like I need that many, so maybe maybe every other year I'll do a Christmas sweater. I don't know. We'll see. This one was super fun. The only modification I think I made is I did do a double folded neckband, and I'm very glad I did. I just like that detail on other patterns that I've made, and especially for a winter object for me. And I think it just holds everything up a little bit better. I have noticed on some people's photos, because it's a circular yoke, that it can get kind of the neckband can get kind of stretched out. So I think this just has a little bit more structure, and it's able to hold the weight of the sweater on there. And so I'm super happy with how this turned out. I'll go over a couple accessories that I made. I don't love knitting accessories. I think I just really like knitting sweaters, and so I don't make that many accessories, but I'm always happy I have them when I do make it. So we'll go into a couple of those. First is the Oslo hat by Petite Knit. This is a super popular pattern, and I actually knit another one of these for my husband, and it's just a great pattern. So I will note, I think this is a very common modification. I decreased an inch from, you knit and you fold it over, and then from here to the decreases, I decreased a full inch there, and I think that's really common. And so just a note, if you're going to make this one, I knit this one in Emma's sock yarn. And the main reason that I knit this in that yarn is because I was going to an event and I wanted something to knit, but it was a situation where I couldn't bring a big sweater. And so I was like, okay, I should just knit a hat. And so I went to my local yarn store, and like this was the best option for a fingering weight yarn in a color that I liked for a hat. And I really do like it. And it's held up super well, and I wear this a lot. And so I'm very happy with it. The other one I knit in Knitting for Olive, Merino, held double. So this was held double as well, the fingering weight. I don't know, I just have a preference, I think, to holding fingering weight double versus using a DK. So I do that a lot, but I could have used the heavy Merino, and I could have used double Sunday on plenty of these objects that I've already talked about. And then I finished the year with none other than the Sophie Hood. I'm so happy to have this. It is so amazing. There is just something about knitting garter stitch that is so satisfying, and it's just so Petite Knit to have the amazing I-cord detail. And so I love this. I think this would be something that I would make as a gift knit for people in the future as well. And so it's awesome. I knit this in the Camera Rose Snayfug yarn. It was my first time working with that yarn, and I definitely will want to work with it again. It is so soft and luscious, I would say. That's how I would describe it. But I knit the medium size, and it calls for 250 grams of this yarn, so 5 balls of it. And I opened the 5th ball right about here. So that's how many inches I needed. And then you sew up the back, and so I needed a strand, maybe a meter, to knit up the back. Not even. You didn't even need a meter. So if I were to knit this, especially as a gift, to make it more cost effective, I would only buy 200 grams, and I would probably just not do one of the increases. And I honestly think that would make up 100% of the yarn that I needed out of that 5th ball. So now I do have like probably 48 grams left of an open ball of this yarn. So a little unfortunate, but a good thing to know. And I mean, she wasn't wrong. Like, I did need the 5th ball. So that's what it is. Thanks so much for coming and for staying around this long. I know this was a lot of objects, and so I didn't go into in-depth analysis of every pattern in this video, but if you do have questions, please let me know. I hope that you enjoy this. I hope to maybe do a podcast moving forward, and so updating you as I go along about finished objects and works in progress, so I can give more details along the way rather than one big recap at the end of the year. And so be looking out for that. Let me know if there's anything else that you would like to see. But with that, happy knitting.